Soft drops tapped against the hospital window, sliding down the glass like tiny tears. I remember watching them between contractions, counting them like seconds on a clock. Everything in that white hospital room smelled like antiseptic and hope. My husband Daniel stood beside the bed, holding my hand. "You're doing amazing, he whispered. His voice sounded gentle, warm, just like the man I had fallen in love with 8 years ago in a crowded cafe in downtown Chicago. Back then, Daniel had messy brown hair and big dreams about starting his own tech company. I was studying interior design and working part-time at a bookstore. We were young, broke, and fearless. He used to say, "One day we'll have a little apartment full of plants and maybe a baby." I believed every word. "Push, Emily." The nurse's voice snapped me back into the present. Pain surged through my body like lightning. My fingers tightened around Daniel's hand. "I can't," I gasped. "You can," he said quickly. "You're the strongest woman I know." For a moment, I believed him. Then the room filled with the sharp cry of a newborn baby. A tiny, beautiful cry that echoed through the hospital room like music. "Congratulations," the doctor said with a smile. "It's a boy." They placed him on my chest. He was small and warm, his skin soft as silk. His tiny fingers curled around mine like he already knew me. Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Hi," I whispered to him. "Hi, my little miracle." Daniel leaned down and kissed my forehead. "We did it," he said. But when I looked into his eyes, something felt distant. I told myself it was exhaustion. The first 2 days in the hospital passed in a blur of nurses, visitors, and sleepless nights. Our son, Lucas, had Daniel's dark eyes. Everyone said he looked just like his father. My mother came with flowers. Daniel's parents brought balloons and a giant teddy bear that barely fit in the room. "Daniel must be the proudest father alive," my mother said with a smile. Daniel laughed. "Of course." But his phone kept buzzing. Again, and again, and again. Every time it vibrated, he quickly stepped outside the room. "Work," he explained. His startup had been growing quickly over the past year. Long hours had become normal. Still, something felt wrong. On the third night, the hospital room was quiet. Lucas slept peacefully in the small plastic crib beside my bed. The soft glow of the monitor lights painted the room in pale blue. Daniel sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. I watched him for a long moment. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked softly. He looked up too quickly. "No one important." I smiled faintly. "You've said that about 10 times today." He shrugged. "Just work stuff." Then he stood. "I'm going to grab coffee." It was midnight, but I nodded. "Okay." The door closed behind him. The room suddenly felt colder. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Lucas stirred beside me, making tiny sleepy noises. I picked him up gently and rocked him in my arms. "Your daddy will be back soon," I whispered. But something inside my chest felt heavy. Daniel had left his jacket on the chair, and his phone was still on the couch. The screen lit up. A message appeared. "Sophia Redheart." My stomach twisted. For a moment I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a coworker. Maybe a friend. Maybe. Another message appeared. "I miss you already." My heart began to pound. My fingers trembled as I picked up the phone. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The messages stretched back for months. Pictures, late-night conversations, secrets, and words that shattered my heart. "I wish I could wake up next to you every day. Soon. I promise. After the baby is born, things will change." The room spun around me. After the baby is born. That meant Lucas. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. There was even a photo of her. Sophia. She looked young. Maybe 23. Long blonde hair. Bright smile. The kind of girl who still believed love was simple. A message from earlier that night sat at the top. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow." Tomorrow. My husband planned to see his mistress the day after our son was born. A sob escaped my throat before I could stop it. Lucas stirred in my arms. I'm sorry, I whispered to him, tears falling onto his tiny blanket. I'm so sorry. The door opened quietly. Daniel walked back in holding 2 coffees. He froze when he saw the phone in my hands. The silence between us was thick and suffocating. You read it, he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded slowly. Who is Sophia? He didn't answer right away. Then he sighed. She's someone I've been seeing. The words cut through me like glass. How long? I whispered. 8 months. 8 months. I had been pregnant, carrying his child, planning our future, while he was loving someone else. My chest tightened. Does she know about me? Daniel looked away. Yes. The pain in my heart turned into something deeper. Does she know about Lucas? He hesitated. Not really. I laughed weakly. It didn't sound like my own voice. So what's the plan, Daniel? He rubbed his face with his hands. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did. I care about her. The words landed like a final blow. And me? I asked quietly. He looked at Lucas sleeping in my arms. I care about you too. Tears streamed down my face. That's not love. The nurse knocked softly before entering the room. Everything okay in here? Daniel quickly wiped his eyes. Yes, he said. I forced a smile. Yes. She checked Lucas and left. The moment the door closed, the truth hung between us like a broken mirror. What are you going to do? I asked. Daniel didn't answer. And somehow, that silence hurt more than anything. 3 weeks later, I was sitting alone in our apartment. Lucas slept beside me on the couch. The apartment felt quieter than it ever had before. Daniel had moved into the guest room. We barely spoke. Every night, he came home late. Every morning, he left early. The distance between us grew like a wall neither of us knew how to climb. One afternoon, while Lucas napped, Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table. I met Sophia today, he said. My chest tightened. Okay. He looked tired, conflicted. She wants me to choose. I stared at my hands, and I don't know what to do. I looked at him slowly. Yes, you do. He frowned. What do you mean? Daniel, I said softly, a man who truly loves his wife doesn't need time to choose. The words hung heavy in the air. For the first time since Lucas was born, Daniel looked ashamed. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. That night, I packed a small suitcase. Just clothes for me, and clothes for Lucas. Daniel stood in the doorway watching silently. You're leaving? Yes. Where will you go? My sister's place. He stepped closer. Emily, we should talk about this. I held Lucas tighter. We already did. He ran a hand through his hair. I need time. I looked at him with tired eyes. I gave you 8 months. He had no answer. So I walked out. The night air outside felt cold, but strangely freeing. Lucas slept peacefully in his car seat. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the dark city streets. My heart felt broken, but also stronger. I touched Lucas's tiny hand. It's just you and me now, I whispered. And for the first time since the hospital, I realized something important. The day my son was born did not only break my heart. It also gave me the strength to rebuild my life. A different life. A better one. 6 months later, I stood in a small park watching Lucas take his first steps. The autumn leaves danced around us in the golden sunlight. Come on, baby, I encouraged. Lucas wobbled forward and fell into my arms. I laughed through happy tears. You did it. A voice behind me said softly, he looks just like you. I turned. Daniel stood there. He looked thinner, more tired. Hi, Emily. I nodded politely. Hi. He crouched down to Lucas. Hey, buddy. Lucas giggled. Daniel looked up at me. I ended things with Sophia. I didn't react. She wasn't the life I wanted. The wind rustled the trees around us. Emily. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I studied his face carefully. Once, hearing those words would have healed me. Now, they simply felt like the truth arriving too late. I know, I said gently. He looked hopeful. Can we try again? I looked down at Lucas playing with leaves in the grass. Then back at Daniel. I forgave you, I said softly. Once, hearing those words would have healed me. Now, they simply felt like the truth arriving too late. I know, I said gently. He looked hopeful. Can we try again? I looked down at Lucas playing with leaves in the grass. Then back at Daniel. I forgave you, I said softly. Relief filled his eyes. But I continued. Forgiveness doesn't always mean a second chance. The hope faded slowly from his face. I understand. He kissed Lucas's forehead, then stood. I'll always be here for him. That's all he needs. Daniel nodded quietly before walking away across the park. I watched him disappear down the path. For a moment, the past flickered in my mind. The cafe, the laughter, the dreams we once shared. But life had moved forward. And so had I. Lucas tugged my sleeve. Mama. I smiled and lifted him into my arms. Yes, my love. As the sun dipped lower over the city skyline, I realized something simple and powerful. The day my child was born was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one. And this time, I was strong enough to write it myself.